Welcome to Right Way Politics with Brian Kerwin, where we do politics the right way, the winning way, and we leave the left way behind. And today, one of my special honored guests to talk about campaigning and how things have changed as we roll through 2022 is a good friend and client, longtime Virginia Beach councilman and current mayor of the largest city in Virginia, Virginia Beach, Mayor Bobby Dyer. Thanks for coming along.
Good morning, Mayor Maker Brian. How are you doing?
Boy, you've got a career of surprising people, the pundits and the fundraising class and the grassroots. Sometimes you pull off a few kind of surprises in politics, a few underdog victories, and you've got a career of underdog victories. So I want to delve back into that for everybody. We've been together a long time. We've worked on campaigns together since 2004. I met you during your 2002 campaign, and we worked together on your mayor's races. So, full disclaimer: Mayor Bobby Dyer is a client, but I wanted to go back to those early days of what made you think I want to run for city council in the first place. This was kind of around 2000, 2001, 2002, leading up to May of 2002 when you put your name on the ballot.
Well, back in 2002, I ran without any professional support. We called it the Campaign of Innocence, okay? It was a field of 9. There were a number of vacancies on city council at the time. So I kind of put together an ad hoc committee of people who really didn't know what they were doing, we were a ship, without somebody's hand on the tiller at that time.
So what was that? How many people were in that race?
9 people, if you recall, for 2 at-large seats.
For 2 seats, so it's citywide voting.
Yeah. And then, it came to the point that if you really are serious about winning, and, the first time I financed my campaign, my tax refund check, and my brother gave me $100. That was about it. And then during the campaign, and one guy stuck $100 bill in my pocket. Mm-hmm. So it was really grassroots. It was the last of the May elections. And, I did okay. I got 6,300 votes, which is maybe a good precinct these days. But, but back during the time
the May elections.
Yeah, the May elections, it was okay. But then people said, you need a pro. And there was an up-and-coming kid by the name of Brian Kerwin that we brought on board. That, really brought a sense of professionalism and reality. And, one of the things a candidate's got to learn is to be humble, be quiet, and listen, and that you don't know everything. And never be afraid to, take advice. Never be afraid to grow as a candidate. But once again, even then, Brian, we didn't have a lot of the technology and social media that we had now in 2004.
Right. It was go on tour to civic leagues and maybe a newspaper ad, or I remember we did some radio and very small direct mail. I mean, you've been outspent every election that you've ever had. I don't think you've ever outspent your opponent. So you've been doing it the hard way from the grassroots up. Even through your races for mayor, but in 2004, you went from 2002, not many people knowing you, and 9 people in the same race,
and then 3 elections without opposition.
Right, but going from 2002 to 2004, where you had a one-on-one race. Was it easier to get attention because you had run before and it was your second time, and then you were the only opponent against the incumbent and you weren't in a big field of 9 people?
No, I think that was a definite advantage. But by the same token, You really have to define yourself in a narrow window and introduce yourself to people.
Because I remember in 2002, the campaigns were only a couple of months back then for the May elections, and you would go to civic leagues and the Council of Civic Organizations. You would go to all these things, and the election came and the election went, and we saw you at those meetings way past the election. You kept reaching out to people. You didn't really stop, and all through 2003 you were still showing up. Is that kind of the secret? Even if you're out of the gate, you're not successful the first time, but like build on it. Don't just disappear and then drop back in a few years. You really can't stop.
I think people make a strategic error when they think a campaign season is only the 3 months before the election. You're constantly running. You take a look at the House of Delegates, where they got to run every 2 years.
Right.
You never stop fundraising. You never stop running. You never stop going to events. And, I knew I was going to be running 2 years later. And, it's time to reflect. One of the best advices I can give to a candidate is that God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so do more listening. And if you're known as an active listener to people, and, once again, the real appeal is, and, a lot of people mistake that, they just go for the big donors, the big bucks and everything, but the people that are in the voting booths are Joe Sixpack and his family. And you have to connect with those people that actually go into the voting booth. A lot of people have raised the big bucks and failed. But once again, and the other thing is, it's an opportunity for you to learn about yourself and define yourself.
Yeah, so you said technology, of course, the social media and all that has changed campaigning. And it used to be, cable TV and talk radio, but now it's like everybody's got a smartphone. What else has changed from those early campaign dates to when you're campaigning now? And you had a campaign for mayor in 2018. You ran again in 2 years later because you were finishing out a term. So you ran again into 22. What was different? What was the same? I mean, and I don't even want to get into yet, campaigning during COVID, which really was a big difference in 2020. But did you do anything in 2018 that you didn't do in 2004?
Well, I'll tell you what, it takes a different mindset to run for mayor than it does as a district council person. The expectations of somebody that is going to potentially be their mayor is far different. And, what people look for is temperament, competence, and a feeling of inclusion, a feeling of confidence that if they put you into office, you're going to be the face of the people of Virginia Beach. So it's a little bit, it's definitely a different mindset, going into what we're trying to do. But the other thing is campaigns are built on the 3M theories: money, manpower, and the message with the messenger. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, you have to come up with a powerful message, and to do that you're going to have to raise money that you could get away with running in a district race. You didn't need that much. But, when you're running for mayor, the cost of business goes up. The professional people you have to put together. It's not only a campaign consultant, but it's also the social media, the web sites and everything, and the mailings and everything. The cost of business goes up significantly.
So, in between your win for city council, and you were the upset that year. The year in 2004, you defeated an incumbent, outspent 4 or 5 to 1. That was the only incumbent that lost that year in Virginia Beach. So it was kind of like, who's this Bobby Dyer? You never had another opponent again for the district. What was that like?
Once again, Brian, you had a lot to do with that, because, part of the secret let me put it this way. Every time you vote, you're making somebody mad. And, there were times along the way then when you're serving in your incumbency that, you create little fires that have to be put out. Because a lot of times when you create a little fire, then people say, well, I'm going to run against that person. And, but once again, it's a lot of damage control. And quite frankly, it's a lot of image control, to make sure that you're doing the right thing for the right reason. I think one of my secrets is when I ever made a controversial vote, I always explained it. People may not have liked the answer, but at least I took time to explain it.
You were unopposed during presidential elections, so you got your first term in 04, 08, 12, and 16. You're cruising along. You're an established councilman, and then in 2018, the mayor resigns in Virginia Beach, so they're going to have a special election for mayor, and you decide, I think I'm going to run for mayor of this town. When you have significantly and historically had such a safe district and such a safe seat that you never had anyone even file to oppose you, what made you make that leap? Because a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. But you kind of said, I'm going to risk it all, because you have to resign your seat on city council in this city to file for mayor, whether you win or lose.
Well, I tell you what, and I've said this before, and I say it in all humility. I pride myself on being a man of faith, and I think the good Lord had his hand on my shoulder. And even when I had to write that letter of resignation, I was confident. Even at the time, you and some other folks were dogging me to raise money, and I kept on telling you, don't worry, we're going to give, the Lord is going to give us what we need. And we finished the race with a $3,000, surplus. But I tell you what, it comes with the confidence. And, and the other thing is, too, people were not aware of my stealth constituency, where while I was working on my doctorate in the 90s, and as you know, counsel is a part-time job, and I was a home care physical therapist in literally thousands of homes in Virginia Beach and throughout the area. And what you did was hone your people skills, your listening skills. When you talk about being a physical therapist for 4.5 decades, you meet people at the worst time of their life. They just had a stroke, they were in a car wreck, they lost a leg, they're going into dementia. So you're dealing with them, the family, and other health professionals. But take a look at it. How do you deal with people? You got to have those honest conversations with people. What's the problem? What caused it? What's a plan to fix it? What are some of the long-term and short-term goals? And how do we determine if those goals are effective? You take that template and apply it to the way you conduct yourself in office, where individuals are important. I'm proud to say that the first people I welcomed into the mayor's office after my election in November of 2018 were a homeless couple I met at the Judeo-Christian Outreach Center, helping, with food delivery on Thanksgiving. Never forget it's about people. Never abandon, and change your way just because you're an elected official. Be approachable. And that's why I still go by Bobby D. Now, they kind of hung it on me, tried to hang it on me in the re-election, where I said I'm only mayor on Tuesdays, I'm Bobby D. the rest of the week, is because I want to be approachable. And, when people say, oh, there's the mayor, I can't talk to him. But if people see me out at Wawa or Sam's or Walmart, and they say, oh, there's Bobby D., I can go talk to him. If you're approachable, if you're human, and you show you care, that's a winning formula.
So is that a conscious thing for you? Because you're the first PhD mayor of Virginia Beach elected, so nobody calls you Dr. Dyer. You're the first veteran elected mayor in Virginia Beach with a strong military population, so that, I imagine, that gives you a good boost of a base as well. But you really don't want people calling you Mayor Dyer, and you don't even go. It's not just Bob Dyer. It's Bobby Dyer. It's Bobby D. It's I'm your neighbor down the street. You forget my title. I mean, is that conscious? Because you've kind of done that as long as I've known you.
It may have one time been conscious, but then
You're not a credential guy.
No. They have a term in healthcare, white coat syndrome, that if you refer to your doctor as doctor, your blood pressure goes up. Okay?
Especially when you get the bill.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that if you're known as Bobby D. Last night I was at an event, and one of the heads of the town bank introduced me as Bobby D, and you made a couple humorous remarks before I got up to speak. That's how I want to be known. That's where I want the legacy, that I'm the people's mayor, and I really take it to heart that we are the largest city in the Commonwealth of Virginia Beach, 460,000 strong. I want everybody, regardless of party affiliation, race, religion, socioeconomic status, to know their mayor is one of them.
Yeah, the partisanship has really ramped up in the last few years, and so is the negativity. There wasn't much negative advertising back when you first got on council. Boy, there's a lot of it now, especially on social media. How do you stop the temptation? Because you really aren't a basher. You really...
Well, you
wind up being friends with people who run against you somehow. I don't know how it happens, but...
No, but I tell you what, if I can give one advice in this podcast today, is always remember, I came up with this. Be careful. Today's friends are tomorrow's foes, and today's foes are tomorrow's friends, and that could change by the hour. And just realize that a lot of times, when you butt heads, make it like like you missed a putt on the golf course. Forget about it, move on. But the other thing is, it's your tenor, it's your approachability. It's your ability to find out what you have in common, what you have, not what you have dividing you. I'm a self-described, some people call me the radical centrist.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Somebody else has that title.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I'm a Reagan Republican, and he worked with Tip O'Neill over Scotch to get things done. On St. Patrick's Day of 2019, I gave my State of the City. The next day, the country closed down. And I worked with a Democrat governor, and we got the beaches open. But it took a collaboration and openness and willingness. And I remember telling, the governor, who was also a healthcare guy, we got to focus on the COVID itself. But in terms of the collateral consequences of the COVID, increased depression, suicide, drug, alcohol abuse, domestic abuse, there's other factors we got to look into. And our teams came together, came up with a plan, and it was actually a life preserver thrown at the ocean front during a most challenging time. We were actually able to have the East Coast Surfing Championship, though very limited in, attendance with all the restrictions. But we were the only surf championship in the world that year. And we were able to get the record for 60 consecutive years. And now we're going to have, this August, the top professional surfers in the world coming to our city. And the other thing is, the rough decisions were shutting down wrestling events, cheerleading events, and then eventually that morphed into the Shamrock Marathon, Rock and Roll Marathon, something in the water that we definitely lost momentum on, the Neptune Festival, but we came back strong because we had that firm financial grip. We were able to, that was the deciding vote to move a couple $1 million of advertising money forward. And people were able to come to our beach with their families and get some respite and peace during a time of a national shutdown. That speaks well of Virginia Beach.
It does. One final question about campaigns, because being in office since '04, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of campaigns come and go, and see a lot of candidates. I don't want you to name any names, but is there anything you see in people's campaigns that you just say, "Oh my God, what a mistake! I would never do that"? Anything come to mind? The people who just make the tragic error in a campaign, possibly, ruin their chances.
Well, I'll tell you what, never be somebody that you're not. Be genuine. People are pretty astute these days. And the other thing is you can't say one thing to one group and another thing to another group. That's pandering, and that drives me nuts. And, when you got to start doing stuff like that, because, especially with social media, one day, the greatest curse in the world is the cell phone, because they got cameras and recording devices on them. So they can tape you at one event and catch you in a lie in another event and everything. If I give advice to, somebody out there on the campaign stuff, be nothing but yourself. Be willing nothing to learn. Be willing to adapt your thoughts if you're giving a voice of reason gives you a better reason to see something through. But once again, be a communicator. And communication is a two-way street. And like I said, the most important thing, don't do all the talking. Do most of the listening.
Yeah, well, it's a good way to end on a podcast for all the listeners here. Thanks to Mayor Bobby Dyer for his insights, leading the city of Virginia Beach, starting with a shoestring campaign in 2002, and serving from 2004 to the present day, from council all the way up to mayor. Thanks for your insights on campaigns and politics today. And to our listeners, we hope you find your way back to Right Way Politics soon. Thanks.